Hello, today we're doing my quarterly favorites, which might seem a little bit early, but I realized that I didn't do quarterly favorites in December because I was doing yearly favorites. And part of quarterly is talking about the best books that I read this quarter, but the other part is just giving honorary mentions, giving awards for books that didn't make it into my top books, my top 3 of the quarter, but still did something really great that I want to highlight them for. So I figured for my first video of the year, we'll look back at the end of last year as well as the first 2 months of this year, and then I'll just group March into the second quarterly, which means that I'm not doing quarterly right, but this is the video that I felt like doing. So for these videos, I not only talk about my favorites and give some bonus awards for other books that I really enjoyed that didn't quite make the favorites, but we also look forward and commit to continuing on with either series or authors that made it into my favorites. You'll see. Okay, so here's a look at the 3 awards that I'm giving out. These are not my top books of the quarter, but rather books that I still want to give a highlight. And we're gonna start with the biggest surprise. So this one goes to Spinning Silver, which after I finished this book, I hyped it so hard because it was such a surprise to me. I read Uprooted by the same author, Naomi Novik, and hated it. Just thought it was terrible. And I did go on to read her His Majesty's Dragon series. Well, I didn't read the whole thing, but I think I read the first 4 or 5 of them and really enjoyed myself. But I just didn't want to read another one that looked like it was going to be in a similar vein to Uprooted. But this was a Patreon pick. This was something that my patrons picked for me to read. Simon was the culprit of this one, and it was an absolute win. I think I gave this 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I did. Never would have expected this to be such a hit for me, but it was. It was the slow, atmospheric, soft magic system that I just don't feel like I read that much in fantasy anymore. Fantasy, I think, at least lately, has leaned a lot more toward the hard magic systems, fast pace, adventure, and this is very much more like a fairy tale. It feels like I've gotten lost in these winter woods that are charmed by this mysterious, unknowable magic. This book begins with Miriam as our main perspective. She's the daughter of a moneylender. Her family is sick. Well, her mother is very sick, and her father doesn't want to collect from families because everybody's struggling and people are taking advantage of his generosity. And so Miriam stands up and starts doing the collecting herself, and she turns kind of ruthless. She becomes someone who has seen her father get taken advantage of, and so she becomes so hard-lined that now she becomes a very flawed character, we'll say. But there are other perspectives as well. For instance, one is someone that she takes into her employ. I think she hires her as an assistant. I can't remember exactly, and there's a third girl that we follow as well, but they're living in this world where there's this endless, harsh, terrible winter, and there are these mythical creatures, these fantastical creatures that are deep in the woods, and when you see their cloven hoof prints, it indicates that they've come near, and generally the humans don't want to engage with the Stark, I think they're called. But of course Miriam, in her arrogance, bullheadedness, foolishness, attempts to make a deal with one, and things go from there. I think the main thing that I love about it is the atmosphere that this book has. I felt that I was stuck in this cold winter with them. I was being whisked away and experiencing this whole new world and all of the challenges that come with it. I was trying to figure out how to survive through all of this as well. It wasn't fast-paced. It didn't have characters that you just root for because they're so good, but it did have a story that was unique yet felt so familiar. And while I would say that in every single Naomi Novik book I've read, to include the Dragon series, her action is not my favorite. To me, it reads very messy and it can be confusing, and I feel like my brain is just like waiting for it to end so I can get to the rest of it, which doesn't feel like what you would say about a 5-star book, but everything else that I loved about it so much eclipsed that. The second award that we're giving is Refreshing Progression. I gave this to 12 months. This is the most recent Dresden Files book. This one is a lot more focused on, it's a much slower book. It's a lot more focused on recovering from everything that's recently happened. These books, especially in the latter half, can be very explosive and very intense and fast-paced. And this book was very much a close look at Harry, at his processing and recovering from all of the explosive events that have come before. And it's much more of a slow down and a necessary one for the sake of unpacking the massive things that have been going on for a while now. I really do think that Dresden, despite its flaws, is at its best with its character work, and this was a book of character work. Final award is Forever Readable. I gave that to Annihilation. I did reread Annihilation this quarter, or this section of time that I'm calling a quarter. It just happened. I think that makes my 4th read since reading it for the first time, which was like 2 years ago. So I'm actually doing a pretty good pace. That might be my 5th read. Anyway, I could read it again tomorrow and I would be happy. This is a book that I could reread probably for the rest of my life, and I don't think I'd get tired of it. I do have multiple Annihilation videos, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it, you can. But brief elevator pitch, there's an area called Area X that has sprouted up, and it's this ecological takeover of an entire region, and so they've sectioned it off and they're sending expeditions in to try to study Area X and figure out what caused it, what is happening in there, and they keep these thorough journals while they're going through. We follow the biologist of Expedition 12 as she's exploring Area X, and it's incredible and I love it. Okay, now for my quarterly top 3 books. Coming in at number 3rd is The Death of Ivan Ilyich. This was a big surprise. I was watching one of Jimmy's live streams. He had Andy on with him and they were chatting about Tolstoy, and I asked them what do I need to make, what should be my first Tolstoy, and they recommended this to me, and it was fantastic. It's clearly a formative work. So many other books since this have done very similar things that this one did, but I just absolutely loved the conversations that this book invokes. It follows a man posthumously, or at least it begins posthumously. It begins at his funeral, and his wife and his friends who are trying to find out what they can get out of his death, or using his death as a springboard to reflect on their own life and then kind of tamper that down, because considering mortality is uncomfortable. And then from there, we go through Ivan's life. We back it up and go through his life and see the decisions he made, the compromises he made, the things that he valued and really put a lot into, and where that ended up leaving him at the end of it all. Again, so many fantastic conversations that came from this very short story. Well worth reading, in my opinion. I did do a spoiler short where I talked about some of the thoughts that it had me processing. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, part of what I do with these videos is I look forward into the future, what I'd like to incorporate of the author moving forward, because it's important to me not just to continue series, but if there's an author that's done something really stand out, I want to try more of their work. This is my first Tolstoy. So in the short that I just referenced, where I talked about Ivan Ilyich, I asked for recommendations for more Tolstoy, and there was one, What Men Live By, recommended by the Cat Lady Book Nook. I think I'm gonna make that my next Tolstoy read. It'll be another short story, but if you have recommendations, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I will definitely look through them, because assuming I enjoy What Men Live By as well, I will continue exploring his work. Coming in second place for my quarterly favorites is The Devil Reached Toward the Sky. I actually read this last month. It was in my last wrap up, so I've talked about it very recently, so very briefly I'll just tell you. This is a book about the atomic bomb. It follows the discovery of, making of, morality of, and dropping of the atomic bomb, and everything in between. The lives of the people, of the engineers and scientists that were working on it, the lives of the survivors of it, the testing of and decisions behind where to drop it. It's a terrible book. It's a phenomenal book, but it is rough to read, especially when you get to the testimonies of the survivors. But it's a phenomenal book as well. At first I was very unsure about it because of the testimonial aspect of it. It's a collection of short testimonies rather than having a standard narrative flow, but the testimonies do end up creating their own narrative flow that, once I got used to the rhythm of it, I absolutely loved the way that he made this work. Incredibly informative, tons to talk about, highly recommend. So for my nonfiction books, when I have a nonfiction in my top 3, I just pick any nonfiction to continue forward with. I don't have to stick with the same author, because that can be really challenging with nonfiction authors sometimes. And so I'm just choosing the Civil War because I'm reading that in March anyway, so it's just easier for me to just pick that one. But always feel free to recommend more nonfictions for me in the comments. A lot of people have, and a lot of my recommendations have come from the comments, so always feel free to do that. And then my top book of the quarter is the biggest surprise of everything that I've talked about, even though I already gave away a most surprising book to Spinning Silver, gave away an award for most surprising book to Spinning Silver, even though I already said that the death of Ivan Ilyich was a total surprise as well. This was the most surprising. It just couldn't get the most surprising award because it gets the #1 spot of the quarter award. It's The Revenge of the Sith. Ridiculous! This is ridiculous! I posted my top books of the year before I finished Revenge of the Sith because I knew for a fact that it wouldn't make the list because I don't have nostalgia attached to Star Wars. So why would Star Wars make it into the top? This is what I get. This is my punishment. Revenge of the Sith I've read twice now since December, and it's incredible. This is what began my obsession with Star Wars. This is the book that got me into the series that I have for years said, I don't think I would like that. I'm really not interested. No, thank you. Reading this, which this was another Patreon pick, reading this book, even though it's the 3rd book in the prequel series, which I didn't actually know going into it, I was so attached to these characters. It's so pained and betrayed and hurt, and it destroyed me that it created this obsession where I had to then go through, watch all 6 movies, and now I've had to go through and I'm reading all the novelizations as well as several of the extras. Even still, with this much distance, I am unwell because of this book. I don't think my love for Star Wars could have reached the heights that it has if this had not been my introduction, because of the surprise of the contents of it, because of my attachment to the characters, because Stover is such a phenomenal, incredible author. And I don't have a #3. I think it's just those 2, but I started with the cadence of 3, so this is where the sentence is ending. Anyway, I could not recommend this book more highly. I could not recommend this book more highly to anyone that is mildly interested in Star Wars. So what do I do for what I'm going to commit to reading in the next quarter? Well, it would be really easy for me to just continue this series and say, I'm going to read more Star Wars books. In fact, I'm reading episode 3 very soon, so I should just put that on this for my convenience like I did for the nonfiction, but I won't because that feels a little bit cheap. So instead, I'm going to challenge myself, and instead of just saying the next Star Wars book, I'm going to say I'm going to read another Stover. So I have never read any of Stover's work other than this book, which I've read twice. I'm thinking I'll start with Heroes Die because I think that's probably the one that's been recommended to me the most. As I was scrolling through my comments trying to remember the title of the one that's been recommended the most, I now see that he also wrote Mace Windu's book. And after all that preamble about not picking a Star Wars book for this, that's tough. I really want to read Mace Windu's book if it was written by Stover, because I love what he did with Windu's character in Revenge of the Sith. I actually don't know what to do now. Oh no. What should I do? I should read his original work, right? That's the appropriate thing to do. I'm already reading so many Star Wars things. That's what I should do, right? But I could read Mace Windu's book. How long is Heroes Die? 560 pages. How long is Mace Windu's book? 481 pages. That's a point for Star Wars. Hold on, let me check to see what the library has. Okay, the library doesn't have Mace Windu, nor does it have Heroes Die. Daggone! I haven't made my decision yet. Tell me in the comments what I should do. I'll pick based off of what people are advocating for in the comments, because I actually don't know. I feel very overwhelmed now because I had set in my mind what I was going to do. I had made my decision and now I just did not. Everything has changed. I'll say this, don't vote according to what you think I want, because I actually if I had a preference then I would just choose now, but I would like to read both of these. So tell me what you think and I'll go off of what the popular demand seems to be, because both sound really appealing to me. That was not the ending that I thought this video would have, but it is what you get. So those are my quarterly favorites, honorable mentions, plans for the next quarter. Please chat with me more in the comments. I would love to continue discussing it with you. I'll see you again soon. Bye.